Our next speaker is Alastair Flynn, who will tell us why Kubernetes is not open source.
Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm Alastair, and I work as an engineer at Canonical, who are the company who make Ubuntu, among other things. I only started here 7 months ago, and yeah, I've learned a lot since then. This is my first full job out of uni, and yeah, so what do I mean by Kubernetes is not open source? So, to start, Kubernetes is the second biggest open source project out there right now. And to take a look at why I'm making this statement, I'm going to look at the biggest open source project out there right now, Linux. So Linux is like a byword for open source, right? Like literally this conference is Linux/open source, and it is the sort of go-to example for a well-done open source project today. But I'm going to take you back to Linux 20 years ago. So 20 years ago, Linux was not what it is today. It was hard to get hold of. Only 2% of the world had broadband. It was hard to start. The installation process was not user-friendly at all. And then once you did get it running, it's an overwhelming system, and it's difficult to work out how you actually want to do the thing that you want to do with it without a lot of low-level knowledge. Also, it was nowhere near as pretty at the time as XP or as Mac. Even though it was an open source project, it didn't feel quite as accessible as it does today. But today it is everywhere. Hands up if you are running Linux on your laptop in front of you right now. Not bad, yeah. So nowadays you can give Linux to your grandma and she'll be able to use it. What changed? Yeah, Linux became truly open source. It became user-friendly. It became something that was accessible to everyone. A small part of that was thanks to the work at Canonical. We, in 2005, started shipping CDs to anyone in the world who wanted a copy of Ubuntu. You could get one of these CDs, you could put it in your PC, a nice graphical user interface would come up for the installation process, and you could, once you'd done that, you had a nice friendly distro with the things you expected to be there, a browser, all sort of done for you, basically bringing the beauty of Linux to everyone, right? The idea is that with open source, someone growing up in Silicon Valley should have the same access to software. Someone growing up anywhere in the world even should have the same access to software as someone growing up in Silicon Valley. It levels the playing field. Now, of course, I do not remember the old days of Linux. I was 6 years old when Canonical started shipping out CDs. But I genuinely am really passionate about open source and what it means. Yeah, these things I've been saying, these are the stories handed down to me by the Linux gurus, who a lot of whom are in this room, who've been doing this for 30 years or more. Yeah, nowadays, open source has changed a lot. The problem isn't getting the software and installing the software. No, the problem now is using the software. So there's a lot of choice out there, a lot of different things you could be running. But once you get it started, you need to learn every sort of piece of software that you use. Yeah, it's now easier than ever to get any OS you want. You just download it from the website, or install a piece of software, follow the quick start guide. Yeah, a lot has changed. Open source is way more accepted than it was back then. So yeah, I'm going to talk about some of the things that today, like, feel are like problems that are stopping people getting the full goodness of open source. Like, what are the things that I've seen that are like the barriers today in, like, you know, generally in the world as things that people struggle with. And then I'm going to present some of the cool stuff that we're doing at Canonical that I've come across in the last 7 months that like doesn't seem to be that well known outside Canonical, that is working to like address some of these problems. So the 3 things I've got here are complexity, that you need to be an expert in everything you use. Approachability, that is, if you have something really cool that runs on Kubernetes and like revolutionizes your cloud environment, how do you actually test that out? Do you have your own like Kubernetes instance running in the background, or do you need to spend hundreds of pounds on these, like on AWS or any of the cloud providers before you can even like get that thing running? And then the third one, security. Open source software, if it is literally just something you found on GitHub, downloaded to your computer, like there's a good chance that there's going to be some bugs in there, and there's no one you can like turn to and say, why are the bugs in this code? It's your fault because you downloaded that code and put it into your app or whatever. You've taken responsibility for that. With like enterprise software, you've got someone you can point a finger to and say, why is there a bug in my software? But yeah, open source, you take responsibility for that in a lot of cases. So yeah, before I show the products that Canonical makes that are interesting in this regard, can anyone name something that Canonical does make that is not Ubuntu? Yes, you've anticipated my first like presentation, so yeah. That is also included here. Cool. We've got 2, but for the rest of you who probably haven't heard of most of these things, that was, yeah, Juju and MyCodeKates are 2 things mentioned, but yeah, there's more as well I'm going to present that are things that I think are really cool in the open source world. And snaps, yeah, that's the other. Yeah, so complexity. There's a lot of complexity in the world of cloud computing especially, and Kubernetes. And yeah, the solutions are out there. They're just not always easy to use. There's like, this is a map of basically just an overview of cloud computing software that is out there. And as you can see, there's a lot to it. You need to basically be an expert in every part of your stack. Which is a kind of a real barrier. It means that you can't just focus on your app. You have to focus on other things. You have to focus on learning how to use the things that allow your app to be scalable, allow it to be highly available, or whatever other nice properties you want. So yeah, this is the documentation page for Kubernetes. And the reason for the somewhat inflammatory title of this talk is that I think Kubernetes is not open source in the way that Linux is. Kubernetes is very complex, it's very cool. There's a lot of people doing some really awesome work, and it's making things possible that were like not possible before. But to actually understand it and to get your head around it, you need to do a lot of reading. Like, I mean, for me, learning stuff about it, I think I've learned like 20 new words just, and I still don't really know what's going on. It's like, yeah, a lot to get your head around. You have to do it to make like the coolest products if you're sort of thinking about scaling and large-scale deployments. But wouldn't it like be really cool if there was a way to not have to worry quite so much about the intricate details of how it was running, and take advantage of the power it gives you? So yeah, Canonical are making a product called Juju, which is a way to manage your complex applications without being an expert in every level of your stack. So it basically distills operational knowledge into code. So you have effectively the knowledge of the system administrator who is running your like stack, but automated to a reasonable degree, basically. So it standardizes common operations such as like installation, config, updating, scaling, making highly available, removal and integration with other products. All these things are sort of distractions from what you want to do usually, rather than the actual end goal of your product. So yeah, how does it do this? It sounds a lot like promising more than is possible, but yeah, I'll explain how it works. So Juju uses something called charmed operators, which are basically codified operational knowledge that it's written in Python by. So these are like a collection of open sourced charms, they're called, written by the people who make the software, and are designed to allow that domain knowledge of the people who know the most about it to be automated into a system where you can interact with it in a friendly way. So yeah, this is Charm Hub, where all the charms that are currently available are online, and you can check out the source code and you can download them and have a go. So yeah, each charm basically allows you to scale or make highly available or integrate with common other things each of these applications. So for example, if you have like a small, website or something, you would have a charm for your WordPress instance, the database, the reverse proxy, maybe some observability stuff. All those are separate charms. You would integrate them with Juju Integrate, and then basically that would all be taken care of for you. So in each of those charms, there is a definition of how WordPress should interact with the database. That knowledge is encoded into the charm. You don't have to worry about configuring or like individually sort of mapping ports or whatever to actually get these two things to work together. So literally, if you have an application with a database or something, getting observability on that database would be as simple as doing Juju integrate Grafana, and then you could go to like a web endpoint and you would see a Grafana dashboard, and it's just done like that. If any of you are in the like machine learning space, there's Kubeflow, which is a sort of massive Kubernetes machine learning stack. Very complex, but with Juju you can literally do kubeflow update, and that will update all 30 microservices or whatever, however many there are in that stack for you painlessly, which is basically the only way you could possibly do that is with Juju. It's a really cool like thing, and yeah, quite complex, but kind of worth it, worth the learning curve once you've gone through that painful process. So yeah, charms, they don't just work on Kubernetes, they're also on virtual machines, so you can run charms on like public clouds or on Kubernetes. This is like a sort of very, very, very high level overview of like what Juju is. It's a controller, which is the Juju controller there, which talks to all the VMs or pods in Kubernetes, which have the charm and the app running side by side in them. You communicate with Juju through the command line, and then it passes that request onto the appropriate charms. Those charms then manage the apps themselves, and effectively you don't have to touch them. You can, of course, SSH into those containers or VMs and manually do stuff if you want. Like doing it the old-fashioned way is still entirely possible if something goes wrong, but ideally, if the charm is well written, then you don't have to do that. Yeah, So it also runs on all of the major public clouds, so AWS, Azure, and Google. So it's actually quite an interesting way if you have a product that you want to expose to the world, and you want it to run on all these clouds, then writing a charm for it means that it can be run on all these clouds with Juju. It will effectively allow people to have a really painless experience doing that. Yeah, so the Charm Hub community is out there, and you can find out more. Juju.is is a URL there, and there's a lot of information there. Yeah, there's a big community around it, like the open source sort of side of things. There's a lot of people doing a lot of cool work. Yeah, so that's Juju. Right, the second thing, approachability. So for Kubernetes, it can be quite painful to test your stuff. You have to have a Kubernetes instance running. But wouldn't it be great if you could test out all the cool stuff on your laptop? So Canonical makes something called microK8s, which is basically that. You can really easily install it on your laptop with snaps, and it has a pain-free a Kubernetes, full Kubernetes cluster that you can just run locally. You can run it like in production if you want, at small scale. And yeah, you can use this with Juju as well to test out stuff on Juju. It's, yeah, really cool. And because actually of the success of microK8s, Canonical doing some other similar things. So this microstack is a similar idea. It's an easy way to deploy OpenStack. Again, for like, OpenStack is a massive thing that to actually run it requires a lot of compute. So being able to test stuff out in like a local environment or on a small scale is really useful. Also, this one, microstack, works on Windows and Mac as well, in case anyone's interested in that. And yeah, check out more at microstack.run. That's also a URL. There's also microcloud, to continue the theme. That's a simple way to get a small like VM cloud of LXD VMs. It can scale up from like 3 to 12 nodes. And yeah, that's microcloud.is. I'm not sure why the Canonical like web team decided on 3 different like extensions for the 3 different products. It's like IO, run, and is, but yeah. Yeah, multipass. Has anyone here heard of multipass? Woo! So multipass is a easy way to get Ubuntu VMs on Mac, Windows, also on Linux. Though there are other easy ways to get on Linux. Multipass is just one of them. Yeah, so it's really useful if you're on Windows for testing out like things on Ubuntu. It's a bit more heavyweight and like complete than WSL, so it's yeah, just a nice way to try out things in an Ubuntu VM, like cloud deployments or whatever. And yeah, same on Mac, except I think Mac doesn't have a WSL, so this is the only way to easily test Linux or Ubuntu deployments. Yeah, so those are 3 cool things. Security is the third point. Yeah, so security in open source is a prickly issue. It's hard to, you can't expect a guy working in his free time on some fun project to respond to every CV out there that appears, or like, or you know, you got to pay him. So yeah, security yeah, one of my friends actually was telling me a story about how he was using a package, I think it was with Java, where like the maintainer had been looking for like 3 months or so to try and find somebody to take over the package because he was like fed up of doing it. And he was like really desperate, he just couldn't find anyone at all. Finally, someone did come along and he was so happy about it that he immediately passed over all the rights to that package to that person. Turned out that person had like, well, no Git history at all, seemed to just come out of nowhere, and surprise, surprise, were a bad actor. They managed to put a Bitcoin miner into the package and get that downloaded into every project that was using it. Luckily for my friend, that crashed his project, so he managed to figure out what was going on. But yeah, security in open source can be like a pretty scary thing. So something that Canonical are doing is Ubuntu Pro, which, yeah, don't worry, Ubuntu isn't going anywhere. This is like a recentish thing that it's basically a antivirus for open source in a way. It's yeah, extended security maintenance. So Ubuntu normally has 5 years of default security maintenance. With Ubuntu Pro, you get 10 years, and you get maintenance for the packages in Ubuntu main repository and packages in Ubuntu universe repository, which is quite a lot of things. So that's like 23,000 packages that Canonical are committing to maintain. I.e., if there's a CVE for them, they will respond and fix the CVE for you, which is a really quite like powerful thing. It means you can like rely on these on things running on Ubuntu for a very long time, and do a lot of cool stuff with it. Yeah, so there's also a free subscription to Ubuntu Pro for anyone who wants it. You can use it on like up to 5 machines, yeah. And yeah, check it out if you want, and you can just add that to your Ubuntu instance for free, and that means that it'll suddenly be going from 5 years of support to 10 years of support. Yeah, and it also includes Live Patch, which is effectively kernel updates without having to restart. So I don't know about you, but for me, I like restart my laptop probably once every month or something. Like if I do, unless it crashes, of course. But yeah, I don't want to have to wait to an update to like restart it. So Live Patch is a way to update your kernel without having to do a full restart, which is a really cool thing. Yeah, so that is everything I had to tell everyone about. I hope you found it interesting. Like, there's a lot of really cool open source stuff out there that I'm discovering, and yeah, I hope it brings some joy to someone's life. Also just to tell everyone, the Canonical sponsor Ubuntu local communities, and I think there was one in Croatia a while ago, but it's had recently fallen into stagnation or disuse, whatever. And we're now trying to revive it. So if anyone is interested in Ubuntu and open source in general and wants to join a community that is sponsored by Canonical, like please scan this QR code, and you can find the sign-up form. Thank you very much. Any questions? No. Right at the back.
Do you plan an alternative installation method? Since from what I heard, with version 24, Snap won't be available by default. It's not necessary strictly.
Wait, sorry, say that again? I didn't hear.
Since from version 24, Snaps won't be by default installed. Do you plan an alternative installation method for the microgates?
I think Snaps will be available as far as I know. Like Snaps one of the things that Canonical make, and as far as I know, they'll be in 24 unless something very, very major is changing. I think, I'll talk to you afterwards because I'm interested to, like, is it? I've not heard that, so please tell me more. Any other questions? Cool. Well, thank you very much.